I wonder what had happened to him. The Leaf Project would reclaim him and he would be sent somewhere else. It was observable that he couldn't stay with Richard much longer, although there was enough room in the flat for the two of them. A 14-year-old boy couldn't move in the 25-year-old man. He'd only know for a matter of weeks. Worse still, Richard was out of caste. He hadn't shown up for work for a week, and as a result he had lost his job on the guesting. The editor hadn't sent him a letter. His dismissal was simply announced on the front page. Journalists fired. Richard couldn't help being gloomy. If he wasn't going to have an award-winning scope, he would need to find work. He had mentioned that he might go back to London. You know what I think, Richard said suddenly. What? I think somebody is doing all this on purpose. I think somebody's put a D notice on the story. What's the D notice? It's a government thing. Censorship when they didn't want a story to get into the papers for reasons of national security. You think they know what's happened? Maybe I didn't know. Richard crumpled a newspaper into a ball. All I know is that somebody should have something, and I can't believe that no one, as the doorbell rang, went over to the window and looked down. Postman Matt struggled. No, it looks like a tourist. He's probably lost. A lot of tourists went past the flat, but it was so usual for one thing. A ring to the ring. The bell. I'll go down and get rid of him, said Richard, and left the room. Matt finished his tea and raised his mug into the sink. At least he had begun to sleep properly again, and there had been any more dream, and yet even so he knew that there was still waiting for him. The four children on the beach, 3 boys and a girl with him. That made 5. One of the 5, that was what this had all been about. 4 boys and a girl who had saved the world once and who would return to do it again. At the museum, Matt had told Richard what he believed, that he was one of them. Yet he could that is possible when they had lived thousands of years. Matt had some sort of power. That much was observably, but it wasn't something he could control, and as far as he was concerned, he never wanted to see it or use it again. He sank his head into his hands, and he had never been in control of his life, not for as long as he could remember. And all right now, he felt more out of control even ever. Richard come back into the room, accompanied by a man dressed in a pale suit. He was certainly fog green, with very black hair, olive-coloured skin, and dark eyes, but he didn't look like a tourist. He was carrying an expensive leather briefcase and appeared to be more like a businessman. Some sort of international lawyer, perhaps. This is Mr. Fairbairn, Richard said. At least that's what he says his name is. Good morning, Matt. I'm very glad to meet you. Fairbairn's voice was soft. He pronounced each word carefully with a strange Spanish accent. Mr. Fairbairn had read my article. Richard continued, is from the Nexus for Secret Organisation that both Miss Ashwood and Professor Devereux had mentioned before. Devereux was cold. What do you want, Matt demanded. He'd had enough. He just wanted to leave this all behind. Fairbairn sighed. Do you mind if I sit down? He asked. Richard guessed to a chair. Fairbairn took it. Thank you, Mr. Cole. First of all, let me say, Matthew, that I'm very glad, indeed very honoured to meet you. I know what you've been through. I hope you are fully recovered. You didn't know the half of it, Richard growled. Fairbairn turned to him. You were, of course, at the National History Museum when Professor David was killed. He said, I would be interested to know how it was that you survived. Richard shrugged. It was at the ribcage, he said. I was trapped underneath a dinosaur skeleton. The ribcage protracted me from the falling bricks, and Miss Devil dug me out. He stopped. You say you read my article, so so maybe you can't tell me something. How comes nobody wants it? Fairbairn signed, apologetical as matter of the fact that the reason why I'm here. Mr. Cole, he explained, my organisation and has prevented your story from being published. It's our job to ensure that it never sees the light of day. What Richard started at his visitor was anger, disbelief. You're telling me that the Nixus, I am really very sorry. I know it must be extremely frustrating. Frustrating, are you out of your mind? Richard cast an eye over the table and over table, and the fact was glad there wasn't a kitchen knife at hand. We can allow your story to get into the print, Mr. Cole. Why not? And how did you stop me? As to your second question, I'm sure Sandra David already told you we have a great deal of influence. We know people in the government, in the police, in the church. We advise them, and in this case, we advise them not to publish your metro material. Why not, Richard? Furthered, please, Mr. Colfaben, could you see the fear in the journalist's eyes? Let me try to explain. He wanted a moment while Richard calmed down. Let's let us start by admitting that your story is completely unbelievable. Witches and phantom dogs, supernatural creatures called old ones, and a boy he pointed at Matt with some sort of magical power. It happened exactly how Richard described it, Matt said, coming to his friend's defense. Did 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 it did it? The police have been sniffing around for the last 7 days, and they have found precious little to support your vision of events. It is true that the villagers seem to have packed their bags and gone, and Amiga 1 is now in ruins, but it gives you just one example. If there's really had been an explosion, there's how it that no sign of radioactive fallout has been found anywhere in the area. I explained that in the article. Richard said, well, he reckoned that all the radioactive particles must have got stuck back into the gate. Ah, yes, Ravensgate, that's the most ridiculous part of all. You wrote that there was some sort of stone circle that nobody in the world had ever heard. Professor David had heard of it. Matt said. Sandra David had gone. Wait a minute, Richard slammed a hand down on the table. You're part of the Nexus, you know. I'm telling the truth. So why are you pretending otherwise? Forbidden nodded. You're right. I thought I'd made that clear from the start. Of course I believe you. Richard head was spinning. So why do you want to cover it up? Because this is the 21st century, and the one thing that people can't live without is uncertainty. There is Where there is terrorism, people need to know that the police are in control. When new diseases appear, they expect science to find causes. We live in an age when there is no room for the impossible. Subscribe it, bell to like, thank you. Click on my screen.